Welcome. We are diving deeper into the sacred mysteries today with the alchemical marriage. This is the union of the masculine and feminine within ourselves, with the polarity, with the yin and the yang. In Hermeticism, they call it the reconciliation of opposites. And as you do the inner alchemical work, there's a change in our physiology. So we're going to be getting more into that esoteric anatomy in today's video and diving into how this relates to Christ consciousness and the resurrection. So we're going a bit more down the rabbit hole today because it's important to recognize that the stories of people who have experienced this, such as Jesus, the stories are alchemical metaphors for the process that happened within our own physiology. So when we talk about the alchemical marriage, this reminds me of what's known as the marriage feast. And it's the idea that, you know, when Jesus sat in the hall with each of his disciples and they had the feast, you know, before he went through his death and resurrection, that if you look at the name of each of the 12 disciples, they actually each represent a core virtue of the human soul. And if you look at Jesus as a character, an archetype portraying the world soul, the heart of compassion, right? The awakening of humanity, that each of those virtues corresponds to. So if you think of coming together to have a feast with each of your disciples, right? These are mental virtues of Christ consciousness that he is feasting together with. So you are feasting with your own virtues and with your own idealizations, and then they go out into the world. So it's a metaphor for whatever you feast with is what you are constantly thinking about and what you are constantly feasting upon mentally and emotionally. Another way of looking at this is that you become married to whatever it is you pay attention to, what you put your focus on. So when you look at your deeper values and your deeper virtues and what you're meditating on, what you're visualizing, what you're imagining, what impressions you're going down into your sleep with, what you're impressing the subconscious with, what's being planted in the womb of your subconscious, your unconscious, is being created in your experience. And so as you start to become aware of what are you committed to, what are you devoted to with your attention. And this is why if we're constantly reacting to the external situations and stimulus in our lives, when we become the witness, we stop reacting and we stop giving our power away. It's the first step in reclaiming your power is awareness and becoming aware of what you're mentally feasting on. Because in a way, the image or the thought, the ideas that you're constantly holding are also the life-giving father aspect, right? Like they're giving the impression. And then the womb of creation is receiving that. It's like a seed being planted. And if you think of the mother as like the emotion, Joseph Murphy talks about this. And as you basically mother whatever the image is, it's like the image is the father and the mother is the emotion. So when those things come together, they are married. And you become married to the likeness and the image of what it is that you're constantly imagining. And this includes yourself. Remember that it's much deeper than just manifesting changes in your life. The real great work of alchemy is a transformation in your own self. It's as within, so without. It's be the change you want to see. It's enlighten yourself first and it ripples out into the world. Like, the true alchemy goes beyond any tradition and any label. These are all things that come from the deeper truth of the divine intelligence that is like a tree of life. All of it is connected. All of it is connected, but it's coming from the source. And it's even a source that is beyond language and yet is the origin of all these languages and all of these understandings of alchemy, all of these understandings of the process of inner union. So what are you devoted to, and what are you marrying yourself to? So when you say it's made in the likeness and the image of, you're talking about the power of your imagination as God, your imagination as your unconscious, your imagination as your subconscious, your imagination as the link to infinite intelligence. It's bottomless. It's all one thing. That is the realization that we are God. There is no God where I am not. That is another ancient Hermetic saying. Because you are not, and you never were, and you never will be separate from the Creator that created you. So it's the understanding that Creator, in a way, goes to sleep in the unconscious of humanity, and as the human spirit awakens to its own divinity, the seed of God, of Creator consciousness, becomes awakened in the creation. And the creation, humanity, becomes the Creator, God. That is what Jesus meant when he said, I and the Father are one. And this is an alchemical transformation that happens within us. That is a self-realization, that is self-actualization. It's just can be difficult to even conceive that you could claim that as a spiritual sovereign, because programming that tells us that that is not humble, or that there's something wrong with you being divine creator God, or anything like that, any sort of shame, what are other people going to think if I, all of that is really interesting, because shame has kept us, it is a repressed emotion. And it has kept us in a certain state of not fully owning our divinity. Even if you look at the idea of original sin, the idea that you're originally flawed and that you are less than God, this is a program. This is a program to keep people from stepping into their spiritual sovereignty. Because when you put any of this stuff on a pedestal, you've put yourself here, and you've put it there, and you've created a gap. You've made it special. You've made enlightenment special. You've made alchemy special. You've made it something for only yogis in a cave, or you've made it special, but it's not special. It's normal. It's normal. And also, even if you look at the great masters who taught these things, Jesus or Buddha or any of the other beings, they never were creating a religion to be worshipped. They were, if you even look at Jesus, if you really, really look at the life of the story of that archetype, he was a heretic. He was a heretic of his time that was questioning the external authority structure of that time and giving people an understanding of inner alchemy so that they could become one with God. And so that's why this movement of the Great Awakening is happening now today, and alchemical literacy is coming to the fore, where we can understand these tools for ourselves and understand that they were not trying to create something for you to worship something externally so that you could give your power away. They're trying to help us see that God is within us. And this relates to the alchemical marriage that happens within ourselves. And also relating this to the masculine and the feminine aspects of our being. So if you look at, there's a receptive aspect of our mind, and there is a projective aspect of our mind. And when those aspects come together, it creates. So even if you look at the process of creation, like in the beginning, there's the womb of creation, there's the void, there's the infinite space, and there's a spark of light that creates a big bang. The same process is happening in our consciousness. And when you go to sleep at night, you meet your subconscious lover, as Neville Goddard called it. And your ideas and imaginations and what you're falling asleep to and what you're contemplating throughout your day is creating this subconscious dream. And then that subconscious dream is actually creating your 3D external reality. This is as within, so without, as above, so below. As in heaven, so on earth. Heaven, nirvana, is a mind state. On earth, your real existence, your physical existence. Not just like on the planet, but literally like you are your physical self, and your reality is the entire manifestation. That's why Kai was kind of poking fun at the idea. It's not just about manifesting changes in conditions and things and money and all this stuff. That's great. But it's really like you are the creation. You are the alchemical marriage. You are the feast. You are that which you become what you think about. You become what you meditate on. You become what you imagine. You become what you feel yourself to be. It's at the core of your identity. Your beliefs create your reality, and your beliefs are nothing but thoughts you continue to think. Then what's your identity? Your identity's just a bunch of beliefs about who you believe yourself to be. So as you become more limitless, that's connecting with the Father Spirit principle, Father Sky expansion. Think of the branches coming out like this. When you connect to the Divine Mother, Mother Earth, think of the roots going into the planet. You're connecting down into the rootedness, and the heart is the bridge between. So even if you look at Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic tree of life, the center of the tree is the heart. It's called Tifereth. And as you're going through the process of alchemical union, you're alchemize the above and the below through the heart. Or you could say the heart chakra, or just the heart center. Remember, these are all maps of our energy. And that as you alchemize through the heart, that is the heart of compassion. Compassion is the water. It is the cup that runneth over. It's the realization of the intelligence, remembering that the heart field connects us to the universe. Even if you look at trees have a toroidal field. If you look at your nervous system and you look at your skeletal system, it is literally a tree. It is a tree of life. It is the fractal pattern of how things express themselves. It's the pattern of creation, and it exists within us. So through the heart, through alchemizing through the heart, and again, this is why integration is so important. Integrating our shadow, integrating our spirituality with our humanity, being in our bodies. This is embodiment as a path of enlightenment, rather than just sitting and meditating to transcend your physical body. It's a path of the alchemical marriage, is the path of coming into union and living your existence as magic. It's living your existence in a practical magic of understanding this process of creation, and it's actually choosing to be here now. It's choosing to fully incarnate here and to create your reality. And so this also relates to working with the polarities and understanding that there is an assertive, directive part of our psyche, and there is a receptive, fluidity aspect of our psyche. And as we work with our intentions and we work with getting into receiving mode, we allow those aspects to come together. And there's a physiological change that happens in our body as we start to raise our vibration. And what happens is that there's a piezoelectric current in our spine that goes up and lights up our brain like a Christmas tree. And the cerebrospinal fluid is actually made of plasma, which is like a fourth phase water that interacts with the etheric field and interacts with our body, because our body is actually a technology of consciousness. Your entire spine up to your brain is like an antenna. People think their brain is their mind, but that's a very shallow understanding. Your entire spine and your brain and your entire acts as the antenna to your nervous system, and your body is actually your subconscious. And so as you raise the energy up the spine, there's 33 vertebrae. This relates to the 33, the sacredness of the number 33, 33 degree Freemason. All of these things are talking about the raising of the energy up. The ancient Egyptians called it the raising of the Jed, right? It's also known as the Kundalini rising. So when you raise this energy up, basically it hits your pineal gland and your brainstem, and your pineal gland is the masculine aspect. And that's where the DMT is excreted, but right above it is your pituitary gland, right? And this is like the womb within your mind, within your brain. And it's like the cup of life. So as that energy, the staff, right, the staff of Hermes comes up into the cup of life, what happens is there's a physiological alchemical union that happens of the masculine force coming into the feminine force. And in that, in old alchemy, they call it the red and the white. These actually a physiological, two of these different substances that combine and create amrita, or they create a secretion, they create DMT, you get the third eye opening, get the crown opening. But there's a physiological change that happens, and you start to awaken Christ consciousness in the body. Your body starts going through transmutation. Your body starts becoming more light. You start having like light codes activating. You start having new psychic abilities, things within your DNA, like actual changes start to happen in your frequency. And this is not just some crazy mystical experience. This is like something you can practice, raising this energy to get into nirvana or get into the heavenly state. Right, so raising the energy. This is the same thing Joe Dispenza is teaching. He's just a really good salesman, rebranding it. Kundalini yoga. As well as you look at Hermetic alchemy, ancient Egyptian alchemy, the Magdalene manuscript actually talks about how this relates to the resurrection. Because Jesus represents the process of basically incarnating God into the body. And, you know, in that book they talk about basically Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and how they would come together and work to raise the Jed and the energy, and they were practicing Tantra together. Because Mary Magdalene was actually a priestess of Isis. And they were initiated, and, you know, they were tantrics, they were yogis, they were practicing Hermeticism. You know, if you look at all of these different interpretations, including Taoism, all these, it all points to the same understandings, the same Hermetic truths. Because it's the same consciousness in that tree coming out through, see, the tree, the trunk of the tree is the oneness. And that center point is expressing out like a fractal through all these different incarnations, all of history, all of the cultures, all of the religions, everything like that. But they would come together and they would practice that, basically raising the light body. And so he raised he raised the energy up and went through this transformation. And this was right before he went into the cave, right? Remember I was talking about the cave? So he raised the energy. He went into the cave for 3 days. 3 days is referring to something that has to do with the moon. It has to do with 3 days. It takes an idea to gestate. If you fall asleep every single night with that idea, there's something to the number 3. Remember 3, 33? There's a transformation that happens in our physiology after 3 days of doing this during each cycle. And then you become reborn and resurrected in the image of the Father being your imagination. God as your imagination. This is what Neville Goddard's teachings are all about. And then you fall asleep into the unconscious, into the womb, which then, with the seed of creation, remember what I talked about earlier? And now you awaken, right? Awakening, once again, to be created in the likeness and image. So, ever heard the subconscious faithfully produces whatever is planted in it? So then that becomes realized. But it happens through you. You are the creation. You are the alchemical marriage. You are the marriage of the mother and the father, and you are the holy child. You are the Christ consciousness. See, when you realize that there is no separation, you realize that this is actually the process that is happening to each of us as we go through this awakening process, as we go through being reborn. What is the death of the ego? It's an identity. What is it remade in? It's imagined. But all of reality comes from the Word. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was God, and God was with the Word. The Word is vibration. Thought is not just like a mental activity in a human. Thought is a vibrational waveform that metaphysically creates, quantum physically creates vibration into matter. And so when we realize that our identity is an imago, is an image, is an imagination, you're falling asleep into the subconscious, then you're awakening to becoming a new version of yourself. That is the resurrection. And then you have an integration. So as you do this inner integration work between the masculine and feminine, you're becoming a whole self. That's also the inner child healing. That's because you are the divine child. You are the creator and the creation, the union. And what is created through that union is experienced through the awareness. So I think that's good for today. I liked this, going a bit more deep rabbit hole style alchemy into the magic. So if you want to leave a comment, let me know what you think about the resurrection and the alchemical marriage. If you'd like more videos on this, I am bridging. And make sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for daily videos, and many blessings. See you on the next one.